tuning in as we go along. Um, Matt, why don't you go ahead and tell them where you got the idea for this? Yes, sir. So once again, this is the BVMV double take here being streamed live on Twitch on both Volzy and Buck Hill's accounts. Will also be posted up on YouTube afterwards on the Double V channel. We have a special guest who is running late, um, typical Alex. All right, so soon we'll be joined by Alex Parsons. And until then, let's go ahead and get started here. So um, last night, all right, we had, or yesterday, midday, we had Boston College go into Death Valley and almost upset the number one Tigers. Almost upset them at home. Um, and honestly, like I was kind of expecting them to. They're playing really well. Um, until until the end. They ended up just having a penalty almost every other play and kind of gave it to them like it was Clemson's birthday and they were handing out the birthday cake. So, um, how much of that do you think was Trevor Lawrence not being there versus Boston College actually being a good team? Yeah, I think Boston College came out firing. I think they were fired up, ready to go, especially knowing that Trevor Lawrence was out, gave them a little bit of extra edge, a little bit extra motivation to probably a little bit more confidence to really realize, hey, we actually have a chance at this. Whereas with Trevor Lawrence back there, you got the number one pick in the draft, you got the number one team in the country. I mean, it's defending national runner-ups with multiple national championships in the past. It's intimidating, especially going into Death Valley. But I do think with Trevor Lawrence not being there, Death Valley not being able to be packed out gave them a little extra confidence, a little extra boost going into it. Boston College is a good team. I think they showed that. I think that quarterback they got's a tough nosed player that really strives to compete. And I think Clemson just made some dumb mistakes to be flat out moving forward. But I will say this though, the future is bright for the Tigers. DJ is a ball playing Jesse. That dude over at quarterback is going to be a dude that you're going to have to mess with for a while. Um, and we'll see what ends up happening there. Um, I mean, they tried to early on. You watch that first half, they tried to, but they couldn't get ETN started. Um, and I think there was actually there was a 4th and 1 down in their red zone, which was a big time conversion for them when they ended up running a zone read, and he pulled it and ended up pulling it out. And while we're on it, big shout out to ETN, man, becoming the ACC all leading rusher. That's a huge accomplishment there, man. His name will be stamped up there for a while to come, and he's still got more games to go. So, congrats to him and his family and coaching staff and everybody there that was a part of that. Um, but it was just I think it was a struggle for him to really get started. But once he got rolling, um, man, did he do some work? Did he do some work after that? I think DJ did everything he needs to do to beat Notre Dame, but I think the other pieces around him's got to step up, especially that Clemson defense. Yeah, no, I thought, especially in the first half of that game, Ohio State got after it. I mean, they were the better football team. It almost looked like Penn State didn't even belong, which is unheard of for a Penn State team, especially against playing anybody in the Big Ten. But I think Ohio State really showed their superiority in the Big Ten, showing that they are the front runners. They are the ones to beat, which we all knew that going into it, but really thought Penn State was the ones that had a chance to knock them down, especially playing them early, getting going early. But man, Justin Fields, he showed why he's a top tier quarterback and the top two quarterback in the country right now. Um, and well, and that I think the crowd has a part to do with it. But at the end of the day, man, you got the number three team in the country coming into your house, man. That should get you hyping up. It doesn't matter if there's 100,000 people in there, or 3 people in there. Man, I always used to tell my guys, like, I don't care if we're playing in front of a crowd of 50,000 or if we're playing out in the parking lot, man. You got to go out there, compete. You got to be juiced up. You got to be ready to go. And I don't think Penn State was. I mean, they got caught off guard. They got punched in the mouth early. And I think they responded later, but by then it was too much, too done. Um, and that Ohio State front seven, shoo, man, they got after it. If you would have asked me 2 days ago who the best D line in the country was, I would have been close to telling you probably Georgia. I think Georgia has a phenomenal D line, but Ohio State proved me wrong, man. They showed beyond a doubt that they have the best defensive line in the country, hands down, no question about it. and it doesn't matter who they have coming up, man. That's going to be the focal point to try to stop. That offense is explosive. They've got dudes all over the place. That offensive line is top notch. But if you cannot stop that front for the Buckeyes D line, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you're going to do out there, man. They're going to run you over, tear you apart, and get rolling from there. I wasn't going to bring up the Wolverines with them going down to the Spartans, huh? And Michigan State came out to play. So once again, man, they knew that they had a big game in front of them. They ended up coming out taking advantage of it. So props to the Spartans there for knocking off Michigan. Um, but I wonder how much fire that leaves them moving forward. I mean, like I said, Ohio State's the team to beat in the Big Ten, much like Clemson's the team to beat in the ACC. So, we're talking about the two best teams in their respective conferences, hands down, no questions about it. If they get beat, then everybody's going to look at it being a fluke. So let me ask you this question here as we got Alex Parsons joining in on the conversation here. Let me ask you this. Who's more important to their team, Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields? I would agree with that. I think Trevor Lawrence by far is the best quarterback out of the two, but at the same time, I think Clemson has all the pieces around them. They're fine, especially with the running game with ETN. That dude is an absolute beast. He's a dominant factor. Um, and Justin Fields has been playing lights out. So, um, Alex, put in here, what do you
He's played one game.
think, man? He's played two games. Nope, cutting in and out on me. Really curious on what you have to say.
Internet sucks.
Yep, no, I hear that. uh, but I mean, he had one incompletion in his first game there. He, would you say, six in this last one? I mean, man, that's the thing. Mark, he's putting the ball where he needs to put it. Um, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's a difference maker. Um, I mean, we haven't seen what happens when he's not there. We saw Clemson when he wasn't there, but I mean, like I said, DJ is just a different dude. I mean, that dude's going to take the reins next year. He's going to run it for another 2 years before he ends up getting drafted. Probably.
Unbelievable.
I mean, let's go look at that the
Are
next.
they doing playoffs? They're doing playoffs. They're going to do playoffs when the Big Ten has only played like what, 5 games?
It's going to be the whole deal. Yeah, they're going to be playing up until the end of or beginning of December. Yeah, no, they're playing full.
Oh, okay.
Um, so
Um,
So keeping this conversation going here with Trevor Lawrence and him being out, let's look at next week's game where you have Notre Dame, number 4 Notre Dame at number 1 Clemson.
Notre Dame's number 4.
Man, you got to keep up with what's going on there. Number 4.
Dude, this year is bullshit. Okay. Like, how are you going to say these are the best teams in the country when they haven't even played their usual schedule?
Because you got to do what you got to do. You can't control that. You can't control it. You got to play what you got to play in front of you. I mean, you can't call it that. They can't control it. They're just trying to beat the people out in front of them. So at the same time, if they win a national championship, people say, "Oh, you should put an asterisk next to it." Man, screw that. They won a national championship. It's not their fault that the West Coast is being a bunch of soft little pricks and don't want to end up playing the game. That's not their fault. I mean,
I didn't say that. I'm just saying, how are we going to say that, Clemson's number 1 when their schedule, what was their schedule before COVID? What were they originally going to play?
but you can't determine all that. I mean, all you can do is just control what you have in front of you. I mean, right now they're the number 1 team in the country, and I think the only team that has a viable chance of being number 1 over them would be Alabama at number 2 or Ohio State number 3. They're the only two teams that have that reasonable chance. Now, like,
I knew the Ohio State reference was coming in.
Ohio State hasn't beating Penn State, who was number 18, was their biggest win. I mean, you got Alabama that beat Georgia there in that terrific game there 2 weeks ago. So I mean, I think right now it comes down to them and Clemson because I mean, Clemson's at least the national runner-up, so they at least have that coming back for them. But how does Clemson match up against Notre Dame without having Trevor Lawrence next week?
They'll win. Because Notre Dame's always been overrated anyways.
Maybe so, but if you watch them play this year, man, they are a good team. They are a good ball team. They're getting.
I'm watching more NFL this year. I'm not keeping up
Well,
with
you make a terrible guess.
college this year just because of what's that?
I said, uh, and if you need to cut your video out for better audio,
Yeah.
it just depends on what you got. Um, and I do think that Clemson probably wins that. I agree with you in that sense. I think Clemson probably will end up beating Notre Dame, but I think it'll be a hard fought struggle. Like I said, Notre Dame's got a good team this year. That offense is. Well, here's why I say that I'm more worried about Clemson or Notre Dame's offense. It's because Clemson's defense has struggled this year. Their defense is not firing on all cylinders. I mean, on top of that, they lost. They had 3 people out from this previous game due to injury or COVID, and then they ended up losing the starting DN there from Florence, South Carolina, because he ends up getting a targeting call because the dummy jumps up and headbutts the quarterback when he's in the air. Like and so he's out for the first half there. Clemson's defense has really struggled to hold anybody, to hold anybody. And so that Notre Dame offense is a nice that's a nice little firepower to them. So I think they're going to put up some points on Clemson. It's just a matter of Clemson can keep up. I think I disagree. I think it's going to be a high scoring, high flying. I mean, my prediction on the game is going to be actually 42-38 Clemson, if not more than that. But I think there's going to be a lot of points scored. I think Notre Dame's defense will play well, but at the same time, I think they're going to be on the field a lot. Partly because I think Notre Dame's offense is going to score quickly. Um, and I think Clemson's going to have their explosive plays that they normally do. Um, well, let's keep on rolling then. How about number 10 Florida at number 5 Georgia next week?
Where's at Georgia?
At Georgia. Oh, they're doing.
Oh yeah, that's right. They play in Jacksonville.
You're right. You're right. So, what are your thoughts? Georgia?
JT Daniels, right?
No, Stenson Benton's been starting here recently. I mean, the problem is man, Stenson Benson been playing all right, but he struggled against Alabama now when that front got after him. I think their saving grace is Florida doesn't have the same defense that they traditionally have. I mean, Florida's known for being, I mean, DBU. I mean, there's a reason that that they have so many DBs that are in the league now. I just don't think they have the same defense to match up with the skill positions that with Georgia has. I mean, they have some receivers that have just been absolutely tearing it up. But once again, I bring up um, Georgia's D line. Can Florida's OL, who I think is a very good offensive line, stand up against Georgia's D line? I just don't know. Like I said, I think Georgia has one of the best D lines in the country after Ohio State. Um, can they withstand? Can Florida withstand Georgia's front seven? I think Jermaine Burton goes off. I'm going to go ahead and call it now. I see the dude having at least 8 catches, 150 yards, 2 scores at the bare minimum. I think this dude goes off in that secondary of Florida. Um, and I think that Georgia's going to score their points. All right. Georgia's going to score at least 30 points, bare minimum, maybe even 40. Can Florida keep up with it? I don't think they can. I think that front of Georgia gets after them. I think they're going to end up holding Florida under 100 yards rushing. And I mean, they're probably going to get 5 or 6 sacks on the game. I think Georgia is a very good football team who lost to a very good Alabama team. Give Alabama props there. But at the same time, it was explosive plays. And Alabama's got some different dudes than the Gators. That is for sure. So we did this next game. So we're going to talk about this next game just for AP down here, and just for him. We got number 12 Miami going to the 4-1 Wolfpack. Alex, give me your thoughts. Do the Wolfpack stand a chance?
NC State shit. No, we don't. We actually have a quarterback that comes in and throws 2 games in a row like over 300 yards passing, and Devin Leary came in and lit it up against Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, and Duke, right?
Mm.
And he breaks his leg. Breaks his leg. That's NC State shit.
uh, man, my man has no faith in his own team. It's all good though. I understand. I don't mean.
I mean, when you already expect to lose, it doesn't hurt that bad when it actually happens. Okay.
um, well, I think for Miami at least, like King is having a crazy season. I kind of wish he would have stayed in Houston personally, just so I didn't have to see him in the ACC. But I think he's having a pretty good year. I think I think Miami is a good team. I don't see them beating Clemson though, but at the same time, I think they'll walk all over NC State.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me on that one. I will say I do think that Miami, with Derek King and the fact that Clemson doesn't have the future starting NFL defensive line on their team this year, that Miami might actually be able to do something with them. But that's prophesying for another week.
Do something or win. I mean,
Well, I mean, when Clemson's been going through the ACC for the past 7 or 8 years, winning by 50 points, you know,
mm,
anything less than 20 is a surprise.
it's understandable. Uh,
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for pointing the obvious, buddy. Thank you for reaffirming that and rubbing salt in that wound.
he was about
Love you too, buddy.
he was about to come with him.
We didn't have a quarterback.
You still got to play the game. Let me bring this up. Let me bring this up here. We got So NC State goes down to Chapel Hill. All right, there's a good chance they're going to go down to Miami. But then you look at the rest of their schedule. They got Florida State, who's a really struggling team, which they should be able to go in and beat. They have Liberty, which is a really good football team and undefeated right now. But they still can go in there and win that. They got Syracuse, which they should be able to win, and then they have Georgia Tech, which has been playing like terrible. Sorry, Jeff Collins, I love you to death, man. You're a former cat just like myself, but at the same time, they have not been playing very well. So State could finish this thing out with 2 losses on the season. They could, and probably should based off of the way that they played early in the year. And so, um, has Dave Dorian secured his job for another year?
Uh, I'm probably not the best person to ask that since I said fire him for the past 3. So, you know, NC State shit.
With this being, all right, before we go on to the NFL here, let's finish up with this college. With this being our first episode of the WV Sports Talk here, let's go ahead and get this in. All right. Let me start off with you, Alex. Who is your national championship matchup?
National championship matchup. So I will say I gotta go with Ohio State.
I know that.
Yeah, it hurts. Go blue. Um, just because I mean, you look at it, and I mean, it's Clemson's not what they normally are. Like I said, I could see Miami giving them a hard time. Um, I can see. I mean, theoretically, Trevor Lawrence isn't playing this weekend, so if they drop one game, does that knock them out of the picture? Who all's undefeated? I didn't hear that.
I said, especially not have Trevor Lawrence do the
Yeah.
playoff.
So
They don't have the best quarterback in the country.
So I'm not going to say who I think is going to be in the national championship game. I will pick my 4 teams for the playoff.
All right.
I'll go Bama, Ohio State, okay, and then I'm saying the ACC champion, be it Clemson or Notre Dame, because I think whoever wins this weekend will take it. And then I think that you will have the SEC runner-up, be it Georgia or Florida.
Which is probably going to be based off of this week. I mean, Matt, what do you say? You got to remember, Georgia's going to have to see Alabama in the SEC championship game again.
Again. Hey, leave it to COVID to get them in the playoff. No, didn't Texas just blow out Oklahoma or something?
No, it wasn't a blowout. They beat them in overtime. It was a really good game.
Oh, okay.
You still have Texas A&M still there fighting. They were number 8 this year. They had a big win over Arkansas, 42-31. So they'll probably end up. Cincinnati was number 7. They ended up beating Memphis. They'll end up moving up. But I think
but the college football or the playoff committee isn't going to put Cincinnati in there with Ohio State and Alabama. Okay. It's like South Florida, or was it Central Florida?
I think it ends up depending on what happens with Georgia. I mean, because there's a lot more losses this year than there were with Central Florida. If Georgia loses to Florida, and then Florida ends up losing a game or two there, you stand a chance of knocking both them out. If Texas A&M drops, all right, then and Notre Dame ends up losing to, or Clemson ends up losing, or whatever it may be, one of those teams drop, they're the next best team out there. I think they have a chance. If you ask me what my playoff teams are, I'm gonna go with Clemson, Alabama State, and then Georgia or Notre Dame. It's either gonna be one of those two. I think if Georgia beats Florida, regardless of the because I think that's what it's gonna come down to. If Georgia beats Florida, and then Florida ends up, or sorry, and then Alabama ends up beating Georgia again in the SEC championship game, did Notre Dame finish out strong enough to take that spot? But here's the thing: I don't think Georgia loses to Alabama for a second time this season. They played that game too well, too tough, and fought their butts off too much. I think that they really stand a chance at beating Alabama if they end up playing again in the SEC championship game. And if that happens, I think Alabama's schedule is still tough enough in the SEC. I think they win enough games still leading up to that because I mean I think they're going to go undefeated all the way up until the SEC championship game. I think you get two teams from the SEC being in there, but if Florida ends up beating Georgia and then they push their way into an SEC championship game, then that mixes everything up in there. If Georgia ends up losing two, Florida ends up losing two, Notre Dame's that next best team, unless Notre Dame falls off, and then you can get Cincinnati to fall in there. So I don't think Cincinnati and Texas A&M are what? Yep. Want to try that again?
A lot of hypotheticals.
A lot of hypotheticals. I mean, we're still early in the season. We still got a month and a half to play of games before we even get into it. So I mean, you know, it's probably going to be. I mean, this is going to change weekly without a doubt. I mean, you still have BYU that's undefeated. I mean, shoot. So let me ask you this, and let's while we're talking about this, let's go into the last question. We're going to talk about college football, and then we'll get into the NFL. If you have to pick one dark horse team to make the playoffs that nobody sees coming, who do you got, Matt? Let's start with you. All right. What about you, Alex? Alex.
So, y'all are gonna laugh when I say this. Oh my God! Can you hear me?
Out the call. Yeah, I can hear you.
Testing.
Carolina.
Man, Carolina just lost to friggin' Virginia.
Oh, they got beat yesterday too.
Yeah, yes. I mean, they lost
Miami.
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 I hear. Yeah, no, if they beat Virginia last night, then maybe they have a chance. But they ended up losing to them, dropping that game. They should not have lost that game.
Yeah, no, I didn't know. I thought they were a one-loss team to FSU.
They were until then. And that was another game they should have dropped. Man, that Seminole.
Well, that's what happens when you have a job on the day of college football.
So let me tell you this: for my dark horse team, the team that's not going to happen just because they play in the Sun Belt is Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina has been a dominant team this year. I mean, they just beat a very good Georgia State team, 51-0. 51-0, man. That is a very good football team out there in Conway, South Carolina, and I think they'll end up going undefeated and win the Sun Belt. But even if they go undefeated and win the Sun Belt, the playoff committee is still not going to stick them in there unless some drastic things happen. But they're definitely my favorite team moving forward to finish this thing undefeated. That freshman quarterback they have is a dude. They have an entire stable of running backs back there that can get after it. That defense is crazy good. I think that they are by far one of the best teams in college football and extremely uh, overlooked. And I really hope that they end up getting their due respect there, especially to Jamie Chadwell. I mean, that dude, he's won every single where he's gone. He's won every single where he's gone. That dude's going to figure it out. But anyway, getting back, my dark horse team to slide their way into the playoffs is going to be probably Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M ends up winning the Big 12 and slides into that 4th spot.
Texas A&M is in the
SEC.
SEC.
They're in the SEC now, right? Ooh.
Yeah, they're in the East.
Never mind. Scratch that. I'm wrong.
No, they're in the West, aren't they?
Yeah, they're in the West. Sorry, Missouri's in the East. Sorry.
No, man, I'm 12 years behind. Nope, I'm going Miami too. I'm right there with you. I think if Miami has the best chance of beating Clemson in the SEC, if Notre Dame doesn't do it next week. If Notre Dame does it next week, then we're going to see Notre Dame in the playoffs, regardless of what ends up happening this way out.
I mean, I can almost jump on the Texas A&M one. They did lose to Alabama, but their remaining schedule at South Carolina, at Tennessee, home against Ole Miss, home against LSU, and at Auburn. So I don't. The only challenge I can see in there is probably the Tennessee and Ole Miss.
Bad, yeah, but
yep.
Man, how about Auburn giving it up to ended up losing there to LSU yesterday? That was man, LSU not looking good. Them Tigers versus Tigers, and Auburn definitely showed up. So let's go ahead and move on now to the NFL. Let's start off by talking about that Thursday night game with the Panthers and Falcons there in Charlotte. That was, man, what a game. What a game. What are your guys' thoughts on it?
Heartbreaker. I think the biggest thing that I seen from the first time they played to this one, Matt Rule talked about it, and they talked about it at game 1 the first time. The biggest thing that this matchup has came to, and you saw the Carolina Panthers dominated line of scrimmage the first time they played. I don't think they did. I felt like Atlanta came at them underneath their intermittent head coach. This team should be 2-0. I mean, we won't get into that one, that Detroit game. But this team should be 2-0. This is a different looking team right now, and I do think the line of scrimmage, Carolina lost it, and that would ultimately Teddy kept on dropping back and getting pressure on him. So at the end of the day,
we were also down Russell Okung.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was out.
I think the defensive line got after the Falcons. I just don't think the Panthers' offensive line was worth a flip.
Mm-mm.
I mean,
our offensive line hasn't been worth a flip since freaking Jake Delhomme and Stephen Davis in a 2003 Super Bowl.
You give them a little bit more credit than that. I'll give them to win until Jordan Gross and Ron Khalil retired. Once those guys left, they were the heart and soul of that offensive line. Once they left, they have extremely struggled for the last 10 years since then.
I give it 2015 minus the tackles. I mean, in the middle you had Aaron Norman, Turner.
2015 was just
you talked about that team.
Flip on the radar.
Tackles wise, yeah.
We didn't play anybody
legit.
And then once we actually see a high-ranking team.
Well, at the same time, I mean, Von Miller's a different dude. I mean, I don't care who you are, man. That's a different dude right there. That's like having to go.
Boom! What happens in the Super?
Well, you also had Cam Newton end up playing like crap as well, which didn't help. But yes, no, I think that offensive line was still pretty good. And here's the thing that you'll find is that why is it, all right, that 99% of the teams out there, their weak point is the offensive line. And it's because it's hard to put together a really good offensive line. It really is. It is hard to get five guys together that actually play together and play the way the game is supposed to be played, in the sense of being a dominant force in the run game and being solid in the pass game. You don't have to be dominant in the pass game, but you got to be solid. And the Panthers were not solid against the Falcons. They weren't solid at all. They ended up giving up A gap pressures. They ended up giving B gap pressures. They ended up giving C gap pressures. They had missed blocks, miscommunication. Mike Davis ran right by a guy blitzing through the A gap once. I mean, it was just bad.
Well, I would say just how I don't think I can't even think of a team that went 16 games having their full offensive line healthy. I mean, you don't see that.
No, not at all. It was just it was some bad play up there. But here's the thing, right? Matt Rule said at the beginning of the season he wants to build this Panthers team, okay, on in the draft for defense, and then free agency for offense. Well, that's a great way of looking at it. So for defense, he went out and he got some young, high-flying, fast dogs out there, hungry dogs out there doing some things, and they play really young. I think Jeremy Chinn's going to end up being a Pro Bowl in this league. I think Derrick Brown's going to end up being a Pro Bowl in this league. Those dudes have been playing.
Don't forget about. I know he didn't draft him, but I'm a big fan of him. Brian Burns. I mean, he's showing to show that he might take over this league next.
Brian Burns is one of the best out there, but we're just talking about what's this past year.
Yep.
The that he did there. I think that's a phenomenal job building on top of the defense that they ended up. I mean, they lost Luke Kuechly, and trying to build that back. I think Shaq Thomas has done a really good job there on the inside. I think Brian Burns is one of the best edge rushers in the game right now. I think D Jackson has showed up there at the corner slot, played really well out there too. And then Trey Boston has surprised me out there at safety for the last 2 years. But
you know who you didn't mention him, and it's to a credit where I'm waiting for him to kind of step up short. It's like I haven't heard of him from him. He's
Shorts. I don't know Shorts the dude that we all thought he was. But here's the thing. Here's the point I'm making right here. Is they said they want to build up the offense through free agency, and I think they did a really good job getting the white out there out of
Robin
New
Anderson.
York.
Robbie Anderson.
And then obviously C-Mac's been hurt. I think Davis has done a really good job stepping up. I think Teddy Bridgewater is a very good starter in the league. They'll end up doing some damage, doing some work. I mean, it's the second highest completion pass completion after Drew Brees. And if you're any stat just below Drew Brees, you're doing something right. But here's where I think they struggle. And here's the thing that I'll say. You don't see many solid Pro Bowl offensive linemen in free agency. And it's because teams don't let them go. They draft them, they hang on to them, they develop them, they turn into these amazing players, and then people don't get rid of them. The only time that I've seen a Pro Bowler end up going into free agency here in the last couple of years from the offensive line is Trent Williams from the Redskins, and that's because he's freaking.
I can bring up another one a couple years ago. Alex Mack from the Browns when he went to Atlanta. He went through free agency. But like I said, I agree. It's rare. You don't have that many Pro Bowl or offensive lines leave their team unless it's versus trade. I mean, you see them. So, but at that, you're trading. You're gonna have to give away.
Exactly. You're going to end up having to give away way too much to get them. I think the Panthers really need to go out and put in the mindset that this year, wherever they fall into that first round, maybe even the third round, they've got to get some offensive line help. They got to draft some young, talented guys and get some help. So let me ask you this, Matt, before we quit talking about the Panthers here. Can the Panthers make the playoffs?
I know there's an extra wild card seed. I don't think so. Just because how many good teams there are. I mean, the Saints and the Bucks. That's going to be one's going to win the division. The other one's definitely going to make the playoffs. But with how the NFC West is like now, how all four teams are competing, I don't think they can get a record to get that last spot in the wild card. Yeah, they can. I think they can get up to 8-8. But how good the NFC is right now, I don't think, and how the West is going to have 3 teams going to the playoffs. Can they compete for that third team to get in? I don't think so.
I mean, I don't know. Alex, what do you think? Can the Panthers make the playoffs? They should have C-Mac coming back this next week. What do you say?
A lot of variables on that one. What's going to happen everywhere else? I think we have the opportunity to make, but we need help on the offensive line,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
it's that.
But it's not going to
So
happen this year. So they got to
you
work.
know,
I do say this: their next couple games, I can see 4 winnable games, 4 games that are going to be tough. They still got at Kansas City next week. Obviously, that's going to be a very hard game.
But they should have C-Mac back, so it'll be interesting.
Home against Tampa. Another one. It's gonna. I mean, they did play good against Tampa, but Tampa's starting to pick up.
Yep.
Home against the Lions. I do see a reasonable winnable game.
Gotta hope so.
At Minnesota, Vikings been struggling. But it's home against Denver. The Broncos lately has pulled out some victories, but still struggling. At Green Bay, that's gonna be a tough game.
Especially like.
And then at Washington, I guess. And then to finish off the season, home against the
we
Saints.
better win that game. After last year, we better win that damn game.
So,
but one thing I want to point out for the Panthers fans out there is, even in our shitty secondary that we've seen for years, we actually held Julio Jones to less than 200 yards. So that was a win.
less than 200 yards. All right, so let me say this. All right, we all know out of the NFC East, there's only one team going to be out there. Whoever it may be, it could be any of the four at this point in time. It is a terrible division right now in football. Only one of those teams coming out there. In the NFC North, all right, I think the Packers are going to end up coming out. I don't think the Bears are going to be able to keep the winning percentage they have right now. I think they're going to end up dropping some games. I don't think Nick Foles is that guy. We've obviously seen Mr. Trubisky.
But he doesn't need to be that guy. He just needs to be that, kind of like how the Ravens was. Do I think this Bears defense is like the Ravens of 2000? No, but could he get them to the playoffs the way he's playing if the defense can?
With the competition out there, I don't see the Bears getting there. And here's why. All right, here's why. I think the Packers end up taking the NFC North. The question comes down to what happens in the NFC West and what happens in the NFC East. All right, so you said the NFC West is probably going to end up taking out 3 teams. Well, the 49ers are beat up. They're playing well. They're beating the teams they should be beating. All right, but can they withstand with what's going on? We all know that the Seahawks are a really good team. I think that they're going to win some games, but they're still not the teams they were when they were going to the Super Bowl. You have the Rams, who are just not clicking on offense. They're not getting it. But on defensively, I mean, they still have a top-tier defense. So is that enough to end up winning? And then the Cardinals have really been surprising some people with the way that they've been playing, but is it enough to get them to the playoffs? Here's my prediction. I see 2 teams coming out of the NFC West. 2. I see the 49ers, and I see the Seahawks coming out of that division. That leaves 3 teams coming out of the NFC South. I think we should see 3 teams coming out of the NFC South. I think it's going to be the Saints, the Bucks. One of those teams will probably end up winning the division. But if the Panthers can put it together when C-Mac's back on the field and add a little thunder lightning combination between him and Mike Davis, I think they have a chance of sneaking in there to that brand new 7th seed wild card position to be able to at least stand a fighting chance. What they do from there, who knows? But I think they stand a chance.
Well, this is my only question. So if we went to right now, if you said the Packers winning, who are you giving the NFC South? Tampa or Saints?
I think the Buccaneers defense is playing too.
So, if you say that, and you saying, are you saying Seattle will win the West, continue to win the West?
Well, we'll get to that here in a little bit.
But my question is, can the Panthers outbeat? Because it's going to be a 5-team race right now. If you already consider the Panthers, it's the Bears, the New Saints, Panthers, Cardinals, Rams.
I think they I think they get in over the Cardinals, the Rams, and the Bears.
Well, right now they don't. They have the least odds because all those teams are at least 2 losses. The Panthers are sitting here with 5, so it's stacked against them.
I know, but we have another 2 months to play. And like I said, they've done all this. They've taken all those teams to the edge without having C-Mac. So I think once you put C-Mac into the mix, things change up for him. I mean, he's the best running back in the league for a reason. And he's been out since week 2. And the last time he played was against the Bucks, where he ended up not being able to finish the game. And then they ended up losing. But I think with him playing, with him in the game, they're a different team. And it takes pressure off of Teddy Bridgewater, who's been playing lights out. It takes pressure off that offensive line. And it takes pressure off the defense, who's not been on the field so freaking much. if he's healthy and he's back to where he was, they're a different team, and I think they really stand a chance of doing some more. So let's keep on moving, though. Let's go on. We have the Patriots versus the Bills in Buffalo today. Um, you still have Gilmore is still out, so he will not be playing today, missing one of the best corners in the league um, against a very, very talented Bills offense. What do you see happening in that game?
I mean, the Bills have struggled the last
Cam
couple.
Newton goes off.
Okay.
The Bills been struggling, but I think today they bounced back. I love Cam, but I think he's been exposed. I think this offense has been exposed, and also they look banged up. Edelman is banged up. I don't know if he's playing or not with that knee. I want to say I've heard he's out.
Who's that?
Edelman.
He's out.
I thought so. So he's out. This is one of the worst receiving cores in the NFL. There are dead last in separation. Yeah, dead last in separation. And this New England Patriots defense is probably the worst one statistically. Bill Belichick's worst defense since joining the Patriots. I know can't say it was like 9 defensive players set out for the season, but this defense looks horrible right now. I mean,
absolutely.
So
I think the Bills end up walking away with an easy win here and keep on rolling.
The only way I would give the Patriots though, if they played like against Miami, running the ball. I think that I mean for how Camden's struggling, I think that's the only way. But I give the Bills.
Yeah, no, I think the Bills are just too talented on offense with Stephon Diggs and T.J. Yeldon and Josh Allen. I think that offense is just too dominant of a force against a very bad New England defense. So let's go on to the next one. What do you have, all right, with Derrick Henry's Tennessee Titans going into Cincinnati to take on Burrow's Bengals? The one-win Bengals. Do they stand a chance against the Titans?
No. I'll let you go, Alex. Nope.
I mean, like, I'm not even gonna talk about that game. My question is, will Cincinnati agree to trade people? Because if you look back at the history of Cincinnati, they don't trade anybody.
And they need AJ Green, so that man go win a Super Bowl with somebody that's actually worth a damn.
And you get more draft picks. So, like, you look back in the past few years with Jacksonville, and, like, free agents stayed away from Jacksonville because of the bullshit that came with the company. Cincinnati's starting to take that approach. So you need to start trading some players to, A, acquire more assets for a young quarterback, and B, to entice free agents to come in. You know, you look at an AJ Green, and I'm just throwing a name out there, a Patrick Peterson, or years down the road an Aaron Donald. What's going to happen when those guys want to try and maybe sign on with a Cincinnati when Joe Burrow's playing at an MVP level to win a Super Bowl, but then Joe Burrow gets hurt, and then are they going to be traded to a Super Bowl contender? Do they get stuck with a shitty organization like the Bengals? Like, Derrick Henry's going to drop dick on these guys, okay? But, yeah, Cincinnati needs to get their shit together because Joe Burrow is a good quarterback, and I would hate to see the same thing happen to him that happened to Carson Palmer.
No, I agree. I think that they're going to end up getting ran over. Matt, go ahead. You had something to say.
I think Joe Burrow is going to be the next great quarterback in this league, and he might turn out something very special. But this team is not going to win anything. They're not going to be competitive or win against Tennessee. I don't have any chance just because Joe Burrow is getting beaten up. This offensive line for him can't protect him, and I mean, and offensively they do have power, but this line can't block for him, can't do anything, and this defense. Don't even get started with this defense. So, do they have potential in the next couple of years? Yeah, but it's just like one of those organizations. I'm like, it's going to be a lot for them to turn around this program. I think it's gonna take some pieces.
They need to give that man some help, especially up front. I mean, that dude's running around for his life back there. It's almost not even fair. It's like watching a JV offensive line go against NFL guys, and it's not good. Not good up front for the Bengals. But here's the thing: they have a lot of talent in the skill positions. They got a talented quarterback. I think they have a talented defensive front. There's just they don't have. I think they have one of the worst offensive lines in the league. I think they have one of the worst secondaries in the league. I just think it's a rough time in Cincinnati, and I really hope Joe Burrow's talent doesn't go to waste because I'm right there with you. I think that dude is extremely talented. He can do some special things, but at the same time, I think he can be thrown away, and he could end up having a very short career because there's only so many times you can get beat up like he's getting beat up, and continue to want to take that beating day in and day out. So let's go on to the next game we have on here. The Las Vegas Raiders going into Cleveland, the Odell Beckham-less Browns.
I'll start it off. The Raiders have underperformed lately. They did look like they were going to be a top team in the AFC that could compete with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Ravens teams coming out early. But these last couple weeks, they have struggled. I mean, they just got beaten down by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, I didn't expect that one, but I know Odell went down, but
whoa. Did you hear about what happened with the Raiders last week?
In what regard?
Yeah.
You got to be more specific.
Their offensive line, like 3 of their starting offensive line had tested positive or were under quarantine for COVID protocol, and they did not get to practice until Saturday before the game.
Well, in the NFL, you got to be
so
I know what you're saying, but at the same time, guys that don't practice in the NFL all the time and end up still performing in the NFL or on Sunday. That's why they're in the NFL. You have guys that end up. I mean, their practices are basically a walk.
Yeah, but is the Bruce Arians offense with Tom Brady? It's not necessarily practicing. It's going through and being able to watch film. You know, they couldn't even go in and watch film with the coaches.
Well,
I'm sure
they're still doing Zoom, but my biggest thing is it's 2020.
Yeah, we're seeing how good Zoom works for me right now too, right?
Well, they're NFL players. I'm sure they can afford internet.
But they probably have a business Zoom, honestly.
Dedicated servers. Internet too. I just got a landlord that doesn't give a shit.
I'm just saying this. I said it's 2020. I mean, everyone's being thrown stuff. I mean, everyone's been affected in NFL. It's just who's going to adapt. Who's adapting? I mean, Tennessee. You seen what they did when they came back from their being missed out against Buffalo. They just came out. They were ready to play. I was like, so it's just who's going to be able to adapt with.
So Cleveland now, all right, they lose Odell Beckham Jr. to the torn ACL. He's out for the rest of the year. Without him, all right, do they stand a chance at being able to perform the rest of the season?
I say yeah.
They have Las Vegas Raiders today, all right, which is a winnable game because I do think the Raiders are a very talented team, but I think they're extremely young and they're probably another year or two away from being extremely competitive. You have Houston with one of the worst offensive lines in the league where Deshaun Watson's getting sacked about every 12 dropbacks. He's getting hit about every 7 dropbacks. So that's another very winnable game with the front that the Browns have. Then they have the Eagles, the Jaguars, which are both winnable games. And then they get into a stretch with the Titans and the Ravens. I see them both dropping that. They go with Giants, Jets, which I hope they win both of those. And then they finish off with the Steelers. Now, I don't think they end up making the playoffs, but I do think that they can have a respectable year even without Odell Beckham Jr. because of, I mean, they still have Javarius Landry. They still have Kareem Hunt. They still have Nick Chubb. Here's my problem with the Browns right now. I don't think Baker Mayfield's that guy. I don't think he has proven that he can be that guy. They make fun of him in the Heisman commercial there where they're talking about he can only perform under pressure. Dude can't even perform under pressure right now. All right. And I just don't see him. I mean, I really think he is and somebody said it before.
Sober Johnny Manziel.
A sober Johnny Manziel. That's exactly what he is, right? He is a flash show, but he's not. I don't think he's an elite quarterback. I think they still need to find somebody for that position to be able to get the ball consistently to guys like Javarius Landry and Odell when he gets back to really have the run that they want to have. I just don't see Baker being that guy.
I'll say, I don't think he's that elite quarter. I think he's above average best. you've seen when they have a running game and they focus running the ball and play action with him that he can be efficiently. But when Fort has to they're down, they need him to get back in this game. He can't do it. He's not athletic too at all. So you can't offer what all these other quarterbacks offering to Jackson, Mahomes, Murphy, like Kyler.
He's that athletic compared to Jackson and Mahomes.
Yeah. But I do say this. I do think you looked at when Odell went down, this offense did look better, and I think it's the pressure. It's hard. I hate to say it's like because they do look better without Odell, and I think that pressure Baker having to try to force Odell into the offense and make sure he gets the ball. I think that's very impactful. I think without Odell, I feel like this offense did look a lot better with him out of the lineup last week.
So let's go on to probably my favorite matchup of the week. You have the Steelers going into Baltimore to take on the all right. Let me go ahead and say this. I just want to point out that the leading rusher for Baltimore, all right, in 6 games, the leading rusher for Baltimore in 6 games is Lamar Jackson with 346 yards. All right, Mark Ingram is the next leading rusher behind him with 225. Their quarterback is a leading rusher by 115 yards, and he's still only averaging close to 57.7 yards a game. So without having a run game at all, does Baltimore stand a chance against Pittsburgh?
No. I tell you why. Baltimore is 31st in passing yards. The 31st team in passing. I mean, they do have a slight because the Steelers' secondary is probably their weakest, but this front 7 for the Steelers are going to get after Lamar Jackson. And I'm picking the Steelers.
Yeah, but you forget he's Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I mean,
what's going to happen when he evades and rushes? You know, I think this game's going to be a lot closer than what people think.
I think
I think it's going to be close too, but I mean, you're saying like that. I think they're going to approach the game like when Kansas City beat Baltimore in week 2, you saw what they did. They put pressure on them and it contained them. I think Steelers can do it because the Steelers have a better defense than Kansas City. So I think they could easily do that, especially this front 7. I mean, you got T.J. Watt coming off, Dupree coming off the sides. I think they can contain and get after Deshaun because their game play is going to be stop the run. They're going to try to make him force them to beat them in the pass because of this 31st ranked passing attack. So I think the objective is going to force the Ravens to throw the ball to beat them.
And here's the thing, right? The Steelers have 26 sacks on the season.
Mm-hmm. Leading the NFL.
Wait, they've given up 8 sacks all years. They have 26 the other way. Man, that defensive front is something special. I know that Lamar Jackson is reigning MVP for a reason. That dude is a ball-playing Jesse. He can sling it. He can run. He can do it all. They can even put him out there at receiver, and that dude will still be a Pro Bowl wide receiver. The dude is unbelievable, but here's the thing. How good is he running,
He's one hit away.
Throwing off his back foot, scared for his life after a very good defense getting after him. And I think the Steelers will end up – I think there will be a close game in the first half, but I think after getting worn down, torn around, the Steelers will pull away going into the third.
I do say this. I'll say this. If the Steelers – I believe the Steelers will get after them early, just like the Chiefs did. You saw when they played the Chiefs played the Ravens. They got at him early, and you see Lamar, when he got rushed, his eyes was to the ground, not up. Now, I think the Steelers could do the same thing. We'll see if Lamar has adapted because I think he'll be looking at those Chiefs games. And the biggest thing is, and they pointed out, when he got rushed and got that pressure, his eyes dropped. It wasn't looking to make a throw. So if the Steelers can get after him early and contain the run, I don't think the Ravens really have a chance in this game.
All right, let's talk about the next game on here. We got the 49ers going into Seattle to take on the Seahawks.
Seahawks. 49ers defense is too hurt. You know, like I don't think they can control it, Russell Wilson.
I'm going to Seahawks. I think it's going to be The question is mostly can the 49ers slow down enough Seattle? This is kind of more of like I would look at Seattle a college team. No defense, high power offense. One of the Big 12, like an Oklahoma team right now. So I think can San Francisco keep this offense and Russell Wilson down so they can stay in the game, because that's what it comes down to.
We'll get into predictions here at the end, but you look at the 49ers. I mean, Debo Samuel's still out. Street is out. They're still missing.
Nick Boa is out.
Do what?
Boa is out.
Yeah, he's going to be out for the rest of the year. You have Jimmy Ward is questionable. Alexander there at linebackers doubtful. It's just it's a beat up defense, just like you were saying. They're pretty beat up all throughout. And so here's the thing, right? My question is, can the 49ers offense stay on the field long enough to keep Russell Wilson on the bench? Can the 49ers continue just to keep the ball long enough to knock the clock down, right? Because I think the only way they stand a chance of winning is to win the time of possession by a lot. All right, I'm not talking a 31-29. I'm talking like a 36-24 time of possession. I think that's the only way you beat this very talented Seattle offense with DJ Metcalf and Greg Olsen and Russell Wilson. I think that's the only way that you do this, because Seattle's defense the 49ers defense is playing so bad. The other thing is Jimmy Garoppolo's got to hang on to the ball, right? We've shown in the games that they've played really well. They've had very little turnovers, and that goes for anybody in the league, right? You can't not win if you're going to end up turning the ball over. And then the last thing that I'm going to say is that, can this beat up defense put pressure on Russell Wilson? Because if Wilson stands back there and is able to pat that ball all day, and you're letting DJ Metcalf tear up your secondary, it's going to be a long day for the 49ers. So let's go into this next one. You got Saints going into Chicago against a Bears team that looked pretty promising, has been a little rough last little bit.
And this came out.
Is Michael Thomas back?
I think so. I think he's coming back from his suspension.
Saints.
Well, we're not doing predictions yet. This is just like, what are your thoughts on the actual game?
I did say Amanda Sanders is still out this week.
Emmanuel Sanders is still out, but
yeah,
I mean, hell, when you look at what the Saints did to the Panthers, they didn't have Emmanuel Sanders or Michael Thomas, and I mean, who the hell was Kevin Galloway?
So Thomas, Galloway, and Sanders all remain out.
And then also Robertson is cleared for concussion protocol, and Mack is questionable with that ankle injury, but is expected to play, they're saying.
No, so
that'll be an interesting game.
I agree. I think that the Bears defense is extremely talented. I think their offense needs to stay on the field. I'm going to say the same thing about the Bears that I said about the 49ers. The only way they win this game is keep Drew Brees off the field. They've got to be able to run the ball. All right, Nick Foles has got to do a great job with time management. He's just got to be a game manager. He doesn't have to be a friggin' Super Bowl MVP. He just needs to keep the ball, not turn it over. They got to get a run game going. And because I do think that Bears defense is stout enough to take on a beat-up New Orleans Saints offense, at least hold them in check to a little bit. New Orleans is going to score their points. That's what Drew Brees does, right? He's going to find a way to score. Can the Bears hang on to the ball long enough to make this a game?
I'm gonna take a different way. I thought I know you don't have much of that faith in Chicago, like we talked earlier about making the playoffs. I think the Bears got exposed last week. This offensive line sucks. They got the Rams pick apart this line, and I honestly think, the Saints coming into this year were predicted one of the top defenses. Cameron Jordan, are you telling me he's not going to be able to get to Nick Foles and interrupt. I think the Saints defense. Yeah, I think the Saints defense can get after Nick Foles and do what the Rams did. Get after him, hit him. So I honestly do. I think the goal is gonna be the front it's gonna be in the trenches. It's gonna be a matter of who's gonna win those trenches, because if it comes out to like the Saints dominating the trenches, it's gonna be very tough for the Bears to get anything on this offense going.
I agree. So let's go into our Sunday night matchup here. Two very bad football teams, both fighting for the division. The Dallas Cowboys versus the Giants of New York. Metro Life. Sorry. It's not the Giants. It's the Philly Eagles. My fault. They're in Philly against the Eagles. We'll talk about the Giants.
Ben DiNucci, the starting quarterback for the Cowboys.
Cowboys versus
Who?
Ben DiNucci, 7th round. Yeah. James Madison, I believe.
Where did he come from?
He was a 7th round pick in this last draft.
Because Andy Dalton got knocked out with a concussion. We obviously know what happened to Dak Prescott. But here's the thing I'll say about him, right? The dude won. When he was at James Madison, he went to 3 national championships, ended up winning one of those, ended up losing the other 2 to North Dakota State, who is by far the best team in FCS and has been for the last decade. The dude knows how to win. But
didn't he win? Didn't he go to those championships with a what is it, a triple option?
No.
Or the
no, Mike Houston left the triple option with him when he left Citadel. So I don't think he's the problem. And here's the thing: the Giants are giving, or sorry, I don't know why I keep saying the Giants. The Eagles are giving up sacks left and right, and Dallas should be able to take advantage of it on a normal day. Here's the problem: that Cowboys defense is terrible. Can they get any pressure on Carson Wentz? And then my other question is, how long until we see Jalen Hurts?
I say this. You said the offensive line sucks. I mean, both of them sucks. They're both starting second backups to practice squads. I mean, the offensive line for the Cowboys, they have one starter playing. Eagles, I think, maybe has 1, 2. I think this is a should win game for the Eagles. They should win this game. This Cowboys team has given up. And I'll take off. I don't know. I'll say what Skip Bayless is saying. He's a big Cowboys fan. He keeps on saying drop the mic. That they need to drop these two, Mike McCarthy and Mike Norman, because they are awful. I don't know how Mike Norman has been able to get a defense coordinator job after leading the Atlanta in 2014 dead last. But this team has given up on them, and I think this is more of a Philadelphia. How would you lose this? Just because. Yeah, the Cowboys have offensive stars still, but doesn't look like when they came against the Redskins, anyone wants to play right now. They've just given up.
I agree. I think if the Eagles end up losing this game, bringing Doug Peterson's job is on the line. I don't care if you won a Super Bowl or not. You can't lose this game. You're leading the division right now by a half game thanks to a tie. And it's a
No, I don't think Doug Peterson's job's on the line. I think the general manager's job is on the line, because you look at all of their player personnel decisions since that Super Bowl, and you're sitting there thinking, what the hell, you know? Firstly, you sign Nick Foles over Carson Wentz, and then you draft Jalen Hurts when you still need extra help. You know, like who's their wide receiver that's always had issues with Carson Wentz? Is it Aguilar? You know, like if you got issues in the locker room, you know, sometimes you move players to get more assets, and the Eagles haven't been doing that.
I mean, how much of that is Carson Wentz versus I mean, and I believe that their tight end is out.
Hurts.
Yeah,
Hurts has
he
been
is.
out.
Oh, and that's
Yeah.
another
Hurts,
issue. Have y'all been keeping up with him?
Hurts has been
He,
out. He's out for a couple weeks.
And Miles Sanders is out.
Yeah.
On top.
I would say this. I'm gonna say this. I said last week against Washington, the Redskins the Washington football team got after the Cowboys. When Ben Nucci got in the game, he got sacked. Was it 3 times? Fumbled the ball. I mean, they couldn't protect him. And that front seven for Washington is a really good front seven, especially. But the Philadelphia Eagles front seven is healthy with Fletcher Cox. They're gonna. I feel bad for Ben. He's just gonna get hit. I mean, I feel like it's good. They're gonna set the probably the sack franchise record for the Eagles this week or today, and that's saying something because the Eagles have had some dominant defensive linemen in their history.
Well, so let me ask you this then about the Cowboys. Right, here's my question with them. What are the Cowboys' problems, and who are to blame? Alex, let's start with you. Who are you blaming for what's going on with the Cowboys?
You shitting me right now?
Let's hear it.
Jerry Jones.
All right, how so?
It starts and ends with Jerry Jones. Firstly, you don't have a pissing contest with the coach that wins you 2 Super Bowls back to back in Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah, no decades.
Now I know we're going back several decades, but you keep Jason Garrett around for years and years and years when the guy can't even win a single playoff game. And then you come in and you're mesmerized by Mike McCarthy. You know, the only reason Mike McCarthy won a Super Bowl is because he had Aaron Rodgers. The issue with the Cowboys is the owner and general manager. I mean, when Jerry Jones himself says that if it was any other team, he would have already fired the general manager. You know, he's acknowledging that he has sucked up his own job. Yeah, it starts and ends with Jerry Jones, and if he does not agree, then he is an idiot.
Matt, what's your take?
I agree with Alex and Jerry Jones. I blame all 3 phases: players, coaches, and the owner. Jerry Jones, he gets the biggest blame. He needs to fire himself for GM and just be an owner. But that's not going to happen. He wants the credit, but it comes to him, his personnel. I don't know if you guys knew, they have released every single defensive player that Jerry Jones hired to come in this season. He has released this week. So if you're telling me another GM would do that, bring in players and then release them, they're going to get fired. But Jerry Jones is doing it. Next is Mike McCarthy. By the way, I don't know if you guys knew. Did you know Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones had a sleepover? He literally went to his house and had a sleepover. Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, I did know that.
Mike McCarthy was not the person for this job. I don't think he's shown it. If you're a head coach and playing under Aaron Rodgers and you're getting fired, that's saying something. You're playing with one of the greatest quarterbacks to play in the game. If you're playing under him and you're getting fired as him, no. He should be an offensive coordinator. Shouldn't get the head coordinator job. Everyone knows why he's there is because he will listen to Jerry Jones and be that punching bag. And then the players. I don't care if you don't like the coach, you don't like the defensive coordinator. You're getting paid to play. Their effort is horrible. I mean, they're not even trying. So I'm going to give some blame to the players, but I think it does come down to Jerry Jones. I think they have the talent, but I think what he's setting up for this coaching staff and how they can win is up to one thing. I do think Kellen Moore, the offense coordinator, he needs to go to. We haven't talked to him. I was like, he has been questionable calling games like a college football game, to playing Madden. So I think they just need a clean slate.
Brian, before you go, I want to interject something. I think the biggest issue for the Cowboys with it not being named Jerry Jones is when they decided to focus more on letting Dak Prescott be the star on offense when you have Zeke Elliott and that offensive line. Now, I know their offensive line has been banged up, but starting out the gate, I mean, Dak was on pace for what 2,000 yards in the first 4 weeks before he broke his leg.
But you have to say some of those yards are not what you think they are. They're garbage. They come during garbage time when they were down by 20 points at least, or 14 points.
Well, still yet, why is a guy throwing for 500 yards and Zeke Elliott barely has 100 yards rushing in the game?
It's because they're down by 14 by the half. You're not going to run the ball to get back when you're down that much.
No, that you come out running the ball.
But that was the problem when they came out. They came out flat. When the game was close, this offense turned the ball over and punt.
And you come out and you set the tone on the play calling.
Well, that's the thing they did last year. They never came out. They always came out flat, and this year they have never came out. They have came out flat, and that's the thing where it comes down to game planning too. That's why
they've come out flat, and you go back and you look at when they started off. What they were 12-4 and the number 1 or number 2 seed, Dak's first or second year. Zeke Elliott also had over 1,000, if not 1,500 yards rushing that year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what happened? They started going to the throwing the ball and got away from Zeke running it. I mean, year in, year out is proven. You do have the anomalies like Patrick Mahomes, but if you have a top 10 defense and a rushing game that can put over 1,000 yards a year, you can win a Super Bowl.
All right, so let me go ahead and give my take here on what's going on with Dallas. Last week you had a unnamed player come out and say that the coaching staff is completely unprepared.
Two unnamed players
come out and say the coaching staff is completely unprepared and, quote, just bad at their jobs. They have lost the respect of this team. They have lost the respect of every single man that puts on that helmet. Now, granted, Matt, to what you said, they're getting paid to be NFL players. They need to go out there and perform regardless, and I hear that and understand that. And being a coach myself, I'm right there with you. But here's the thing. If you do not respect the men you're playing for, the only thing you have is the men around you. And with their leader, Dak Prescott, is down. He's out. The one that they rallied behind afterwards, and Andy Dalton, with plenty of years of experience, is down and out. You saw what happened last week when they played. They gave up. They quit. That defense isn't even trying. They're not running the ball. Now, granted, I think that they are trying, but they're not actually playing very hard at all. And then you have Zeke Elliott, which I just think is kind of going through the motions right now. The dude's not doing anything, and part of that's because he doesn't have an offensive line in front of him to give him a chance. And when he's getting the ball, he's getting hit early. He's having to make people miss, and he's just not playing very well. I do not think this Dallas Cowboy team wins more than 3 games the rest of the season. And that's a big if, but we need to keep on moving. So let's go on to the Monday night game with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going against the G-Men. All right. The Bucs just signed Antonio Brown. Now, granted, he's not going to be active for this game. He will be active next week. But before we get going, let me see your thoughts on Antonio Brown to the Buccaneers. Is this his last opportunity?
I'm going to say yeah. It's if it turns let me say that if it turns out like how it ended up in Oakland and Steelers, yes, it will be his last chance. I think the only reason they're taking this chance, there was a couple teams, and I think if his talent wasn't overwhelming as one of the top, or probably you can argue the best receiver in the NFL league right now, he would not have a chance. If it was a Dez Bryant situation, if it was like Dez Bryant, he put it up
with the Ravens.
Yeah, but he's not. His reason was he's been hurt, and he had a little bit, and then you saw how long it took him to get back into NFL locker room. But saying that, this is his last chance, but I do think this Tampa Bay team is going to be scary offensively. My only question is, with this offense, will Charles Barkley and Mike Evans be demanding of the football? And that's the thing, Antonio. If there's games where they're not getting the touches they're used to, how would this receiving core, how would this offense be? I do think Tom Brady, I think if they start winning, it won't matter. But that's my only thing. If they win up with losses and they'd be arguing.
you look at what Bruce Arians said when they actually signed Antonio Brown. He said that last week you had Mike Evans not touch the ball until the fourth quarter. And for a normal number one receiver, they'd have a problem with it, but he didn't care because they won. And I think, and then he goes on to saying, and if Antonio Brown, it cannot be okay with that, he will not last here long.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think that they had the same conversation that they had in New England when they brought Antonio Brown in, saying, look, you're a good player. We're going to give you a chance to play. But if you cannot go by, fit into our system and our culture, and you're going to end up being a plague or a cancer in the locker room, you're not going to be here very long. They signed him to a very small contract, much less than he's worth, much like they did with Cam Newton
I
in
believe it
New
was
England.
like 2 million with incentives up to 5 million, if I remember right. St. Heron.
We all know that he's worth at least bare minimum 10 to 15 million because of what he does on the field. But the problem is what he does off the field, which is a lot. I mean, he never even took a snap for the Raiders and just caused so much controversy because he didn't want to play. He didn't want to play in there.
And he
And
still
then gets a chance.
has two things on him right now that are pending.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I
so
think
can he be a? Did he learn his lesson?
I think it's a win-win for the Bucks. Um, do I think this is Antonio Brown's last opportunity? It all will depend on what he makes of this opportunity. Like you said, if he comes in and follows the plan and doesn't bitch and whine when he doesn't get the ball, then he could stand a chance, especially if he goes out and produces on the field. Um, but now, what happens if he doesn't do that? If he produces on the field and he keeps his mouth shut, then it's a win for the Bucks because you have Antonio Brown. However, if he doesn't do that and he comes out and is the prima donna that we've known him to become, um, you're the Bucks and you're sitting, well, at least he's not on the Seahawks. At least he's not on the Saints. You know, put him on the IR, put him on the bench,
The,
try to win his
I was surprised
or
Chicago
the Bears.
gave him a chance.
Do
I'm,
what?
I'm surprised Chicago didn't give him a chance.
I'm surprised the Ravens
Well,
didn't
I mean,
challenge
yeah,
it.
yeah, but still, yet, all those teams, any other team, the Packers, what would have happened if he went to Aaron Rodgers? If you sign him for the league minimum, you eat the contract, and if he comes out to be another diva like he's been for the past 2 or 3 years, then you put him on the IR, and he can't do any damage to you in the playoffs. So I
And
think it's a great move by the Bucks. I just hate it because of fucking Tom Brady.
I agree with you. I think it's a win-win. And because if he comes out and he balls out, then the Bucks just became a much better team. And if he falls apart and goes down the crap he has with the last two organizations he's been with, then you're you're not at a loss because it was expected. And I think you can just go ahead and eat the money that you signed them and
I
release them and kick them on to hit the bricks.
I think my
Um,
biggest thing, though, my biggest thing is, I think this is a different situation than I would go back to Pittsburgh. I feel like he did not respect Big Ben because Big Ben didn't respect him. I believe if you're hearing
I
Tom,
mean, would you respect a man like that?
I mean, it came to a point where Big Ben was taking shots to like saying like, "Hey, I was the reason why you did this."
I mean, Matt. When it's served up on a silver platter like Antonio Brown was doing, I mean, the kid was an immature child.
I agree.
Big
I
Ben
agree
has
with
won.
that, but my thing
Big
is,
Ben has won Super Bowls. If you want the dude to shut up and stop talking about you like that, then be a man and shut the hell up yourself and go earn respect. You know.
I agree. My thing was, I'm not arguing with that. I agree with that. My thing was, I think he has the huge respect for Tom Brady, and Tom Brady believes in him. I mean, you just look back at their only game, how good they look together. My thing is, I don't think Antonio. This is the situation with Pittsburgh, and that he respects Tom Brady, and that I think it is his last chance, and I think he's gonna be. I think he's gonna take it because Tom Brady. He has the most respect for Tom Brady. My thing is, I think Bruce Arians would be the issue. I've been saying, I've been hearing about Bruce. Bruce Arians needs to shut up. That's what he needs to do. He's been talking too much, and he's actually probably the person that might derail this situation from him talking. So,
Well, I think he might be doing that to see where Antonio Brown's at. You know, like you got to remember Bruce Arians was also the offensive coordinator for Mike Tomlin. So, I mean, with everything that's happened with Antonio Brown, you know, a lot of credit needs to be given to Mike Tomlin for what he had to go through and make sure didn't get aired to the public. You know, if Bruce Arians is familiar with Antonio Brown because of Mike Tomlin, you, you know, he might be saying these things to get a reaction from Antonio Brown. But if Antonio Brown doesn't react, then you're like, okay, maybe he's made this turn in his life and we can get to business. But if Antonio Brown does react, then you know where he is.
my question
And
is,
you put him on IR and you
why,
keep him from signing with the Bears.
my question is, why would you do that after you sign him? It's like you're like you sign him, and then you're like poking the bear, like, "Hey, you can react." I'm like, you think you would do that before and kind of see react. I mean, you're not gonna sign him and then dig at him. So I just
Well, no, like if you do it before, okay, if you do it before, does he sign?
I mean, I don't think that it's a Mike Arians issue. I think Mike Arians made it very clear for him that look, you either get with the pro.
Bruce.
Bruce Arians, sorry. I think it's just very clear that it's just very much a get with the program or get gone. I don't think he's taking shots. I think he's just letting him know how it is. He's
Yeah.
telling him we're not going to put up the nickel. And I think it's very respectful and it's what you got to do with a player like Antonio Brown, who has all the talent in the world, but he becomes an issue with everything else. I mean, there's a reason. I think he had the exact same conversation with Bill Belichick when he signed with the Patriots there. And he said, look, if there are any issues moving forward, you're not going to be here. And then what happened? He had one issue come up with a domestic violence case, and he was gone.
we also had an issue with the owner because there was that massive group text, and he got into it with Kraft. So that was one of the issues.
Gotta keep moving on here. We're running short on time, but with this being the first episode again of the Double V Sports Talk, let me ask you this. Start with you, Alex. What is your Super Bowl matchup for this year? Go ahead and give me your early prediction 3 months out.
Super Bowl matchup for this year. I mean, it's hard to go against the Chiefs when you look at the AFC. You know, they're still the top dogs in my opinion in the AFC. You know, I'm gonna say this, but don't make fun of me when I do say this. I genuinely believe that we could see the Bills or the Titans, just because of their defenses.
I agree.
You know, like those are some stout defenses, and then you look at the Titans with Derrick Henry. That guy makes grown ass defensive linemen look like little bitches. You know, like he is another level of freak of nature. In the NFC, as much as I want to see Drew Brees win a Super Bowl and an MVP and to finally fucking retire, I really got to put my money on Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. I mean, you look at what Russell Wilson's doing, man, and he's having not just a career year for himself, but he could potentially have a record year for the NFL. And just seeing what that guy can do week in, week out. He's the first quarterback in NFL history to start his season off with a winning record through the first 8 weeks for 8 years, or through the first 6 or 7 weeks. You know, no other quarterback has done that for 8 years in a row, for the first 8 years into their career. What he's doing and with DK Metcalf, you know, like that is something else. The team I think to give the Seahawks the hardest time are the Packers. The Packers still have a couple days to make a trade for an offensive weapon, and I think that could legitimately happen. Um, but Russell Wilson and them Seahawks, they look pretty potent. I'll never count Rodgers out, but I just don't think anybody other than the Packers can stop the Seahawks.
So you're saying Packers Saints, is that your Super Bowl matchup?
Oh, you can't have both
No,
of them.
I'm saying Seahawks and Chiefs, but I would
Seahawks,
not
Chiefs.
be surprised to see either the Packers or Titans or Bills.
Here,
All right.
I'll go. I going back to yes, the Saints. Saints, Seattle, Packers are a great team, but I think the biggest thing you're missing is their defense. Who has the best? Who has out of all these teams in the NFC has the strongest defense, and their offense is starting to take off while adding another uh, player like Antonio Brown is the Buccaneers.
I swear to God, you say Tom Brady and the fucking Bucks, man.
I didn't want to say it, but
God.
This Tampa Bay team is legit. This defense is legit, and I'm sorry to say it, but the Packers, they don't have a defense. The Saints, we've seen it. They don't have a defense. The New Orleans Saints. I'm in Seattle. Seattle and then Packers. The Saints, they do have a better defense, but their offense is still questionable. And at the end, the Bucks, they have looked good so far this last couple 2 weeks. And they're at Antonio Brown. It's hard to go against them with this defense. Now on the other side, to me, I cannot derail the defending Super Bowl champs. The Packers have looked, or sorry, the Chiefs have looked good and inconsistent sometimes, but it's Patrick Mahomes. I think they'll clear it up in the playoffs. And this defense hasn't been playing well, but they have all the pieces they had last year. And I think in the second half of the season, they'll turn it around and be ready for the playoffs like they were last year. Well, I think this defense will look like they did last year. So I say Chiefs Bucks.
Chiefs Bucks. I'm a little surprised nobody even mentioned the Steelers in this being the only team left undefeated. I think they're still a really good football team. I think that it's actually going to end up being a Steelers Chiefs AFC matchup. I do think that the Super Bowl champs are going to be making a back-to-back appearance. I do think they'll end up taking that one, but I still think this Pittsburgh team is really good because of their defense. I mean, um, there's a reason that in 6 games allowed that they have only given up 118 points. The next best defense.
Are the Steelers really still undefeated?
Yeah, they're the only team still undefeated. Um,
Damn, I didn't know that.
And so I think that they have a really good chance of doing it. Like I said, I think out of the AFC, it's going to end up coming down to the Steelers, Chiefs, and the Ravens. I think the Bills and the Titans can make runs, but I just don't think that they could handle those three teams um, in playoff weather and playoff mode getting at it. I mean, and then in the NFC, obviously, you have the Packers and the Seahawks tied for number one right now. You've got the Cardinals and the Bears and the Rams and the Bucks and all those teams coming up high up on right behind them. I agree with you, Matt. I don't think the Saints have enough on defense to end up holding this up. I do think the Buccaneers team is going to be very good. As much as I hate to say it, because being a Panthers fan, not wanting to see the Bucs succeed, and still having some hatred in my heart from that 2003 Super Bowl when Tom Brady ended up beating them towards him. And I don't want to say it, but I do think that they have a very legit shot at going. I don't think the Packers are good enough on defense to be able to hold up deep into the playoffs. I think the NFC matchup game will end up coming down to the Seahawks and the Bucks, and then at the end of the day, I think it's going to be determined on where that game's played. If it's in Seattle, I'm taking the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. If it's down in Tampa Bay, then I think
Yeah, but are you going to go on that home field advantage, given the fact that the 12th man in Seattle is not the 12th man in Seattle this year?
I mean, I think it has a lot to do with the weather that's down there. If it takes off and it is a pouring down running and run the ball game, I don't think the Bucks can hold up with it.
Okay.
And that's what I'm going for more. And I understand that it's not necessarily a home field advantage this year because this year's different. But the other question you have to ask is they're talking about doing a bubble for the playoffs. And then if so, where's that bubble being played?
I think it's
Uh,
not the type of bubble you're thinking like NBA and MLB. What I've heard they've considered is more of a team bubble that they bubble themselves in their facility and then like they travel. That it's more of a soft bubble between the players and the
and
team, not a
so,
one location.
but my Super Bowl matchup will probably, and I'm going to go ahead and say this, and as much as I hate saying it, I'm going to go with the Chiefs and the Bucks. With the Chiefs winning back to back, I mean that team is absolutely unbelievable. That defense is um, stupid good. That offense is,
And they just got Le'Veon Bell.
and they just got Le'Veon Bell. So it is. I think that team is going to be the ones to beat. So let's finish this thing up. Let's wrap it up here with your picks. All right. So we're going to start off here. Patriots at Bills. Alex, who you taking?
Bills.
Bills. Matt, who you taking?
Bills,
Yep, that makes all three of us, all three taking the Bills there. Titans at Bengals. Matt, who you taking?
Titans,
Alex.
Titans.
Yep, all three of us taking the Titans there. Raiders at Browns. Alex, who you taking?
Raiders at the Browns. I'm gonna go with the Raiders.
All right, Matt.
ah, this should be this tough one. I don't want to go against the Raiders, but I think the Browns will come back out. Will win this one.
That's just
I
because
agree.
y'all are scared of your mama.
A little bit. But at the same time, I think the Browns are still a very good offensive team against a struggling Raiders defense. All right, here we go. Let's go with the Saints at the Bears. Saints at the Bears. Who you have, Matt?
I'm going Saints. This defense front seven.
All right, Alex.
I'm gonna go with the Bears.
Okay. Okay. I think the Saints offense is too much to overcome for the Bears, but I respect that decision. I think it's going to be a good game. Let's go on to what I think is going to be the worst game of the week. The Cowboys at the Eagles. Alex, who you got?
Cowboys at the Eagles. All right, we're going to come in and say that DeSuzio or whatever the hell his name is will shock everybody and lead the Cowboys to victory.
All right, Matt, you're shaking your head. I guess you're not taking
Fly,
taking,
Eagles, fly. 30 points dropping up on them.
I, yeah, I cannot put my money on the Cowboys with what's going on over. No way, Jose.
Hey man,
go-
hey. So what happens if this rookie quarterback comes in and lights it up for the rest of the year?
Hey man, more power to you. You know I'm a fan of those.
Dak ain't coming back.
He should have signed that $35 million a year.
All right, 49ers in Seattle.
Seahawks.
Seahawks.
I think we're all in agreement there. I just think the Seahawks are too much to overcome. Let's go with the my favorite matchup of the week: the undefeated Steelers going into the one-loss Baltimore Ravens house.
I'll go Seattle, but close. I'm gonna say close game, but Seattle.
Saying Steelers.
Or sorry, I was looking around. Steelers, but close game. Sorry,
All right, Steelers.
I was on that last one.
Alex, you taking the MVP or the undefeated?
I'm going with the MVP, man.
I think that's a really good pick, and I think that's a really close one. But I think that Steelers defense is too much. My mom being a Browns fan, it makes me terrified to agree with anything the Steelers say. But I'm gonna have to go with the Steelers on that. I think that defense is just too solid. I think they got a rookie wide receiver that's going off right now. And then this should be an easy one here on the Monday night matchup. We got Tom Brady and the Bucks versus Jones and the Giants. Who you got?
I'm going with what Skip Bayless calls them, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
All right, Alex.
Do I need to say?
No, you don't. Well, good deal, man. Well, that wraps up this week's first first take of the Double V Sports Talk. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Make sure you tune in next week on right here on Twitch, either on Volzy or Buck Hill's account. Appreciate you being here.
Take a shout out to Alex for thank you for joining us for our first one.
Thanks for having me. Would love to join again in the future, and hopefully I can get more reliable internet.
More reliable internet. You can also find this on YouTube, all right, under Double V Sports Talk. And once again, thank you, Alex, for being here. Looking forward to seeing you guys next week. With that being said, we're out.